All right, I'm going to get my audio moved up, and I'm going to be teaching you about the quadratic formula this morning. Okay, so I'm going to flip my camera around. Hope you're doing well this Monday morning, and we'll get started. Okay. All right, so all along when we've been solving before for x, we have solved like problems like this, very easy problems. And we just arrange and move things over like this, right? So we've solved like that. We have solved things like this in the end when we get something factored, like with the zero product rule. Okay, and let's see if I can bring my camera down a little bit farther so it can be a little bit bigger. All right, so we've solved like this, and where we've set this equal to 0, and we've done this, and x is equal to the opposite there. Okay, well, when it's not so pretty like this, or even like this, what we have done, well, we haven't done anything. The book, and I'm going to show you what the book looks like just so that you know what I'm looking at. This is our book, okay, and I actually did this, I think I might have been in the 10th grade maybe, where I did a poster on deriving the quadratic formula. I believe it was done in Algebra 2. So this is what it comes from. So they have this formula right here, and they said a number A, like it could be 3, okay? The B could be anything. They're dealing with all of these being, I believe, greater than 0. I don't know if it even addresses that here, but if they're solving for x, this is what they've done. So they've brought c over. They've then had that a, so they divided everything by a to get rid of it. And then, so that would mean b was divided by a, and c on this side was divided by a. And then they did what I believe they've completed the square, which I think we skipped that method because I decided that that would be helpful if we can just get to this. So they've gone through all of this, and they have derived this beautiful formula that you do not have to derive. Okay, so what it has done, it has gone through and it has this formula. So I want you, as you're listening to this, to go ahead and write this formula down. Okay, now there is a phrase or a little story that goes along with this that will help you understand this. No, not understand. Remember the formula. All right, so you ready? There once was a negative boy who couldn't decide whether he wanted to go to a radical party because he was square. If he didn't go, he would miss out on 4 awesome chicks. And the party was over at 2 a.m. Yes, you heard it right. It's a corny story. You can Google it and find something very similar to it. But this is where it comes from. The negative boy couldn't decide whether he'd go to a radical party because he was square. If he didn't go, he'd miss out on 4 awesome chicks. And the party was over at 2 a.m. See, over at 2 a.m. Okay, so that being said, this is the formula for solving for x. Okay, and a being the number that is right beside the x squared term, b being the number that is beside the x term, which is what we call, this is called the linear term, this is called the quadratic term, this is a quadratic equation, and then this is your constant right here, the c standing for a constant. Okay, so for instance, if you were doing a regular one, let's just use an example that's in the book. if they've given us 7x squared plus 3x minus 2 equals 0, okay? If they've given us this thing, A is 7, B is 3, and C, be careful of the sign, is negative 2. Okay, so if you were to solve for x in this case, because you could see if you could factor it into something like this up here, which that particular one doesn't factor to that, but you could do that, or you could plug it in to this formula right here. Okay, so I'm going to use this time to work a problem for you from your homework. So your homework is on page 324. I'll go to that. And it says 1 through 18 blue. Okay, I am not going to be working on 1 through 12. That is simply identifying your A, B, and C. And I think you can do that without my help. All right, and I don't want to use your time for your video for that. But let's look at, say, number 13. Okay, and this is on page 324. We have this quadratic equation right here. And remember, when you're doing these quadratic equations, they always have to be equal to 0. Okay, so don't ever figure it out unless this side is 0 already. So pull everything over to this side before you figure out your A, B, and C. All right, so in this case, A is 1. Remember, if there's no number to the left of that variable right here, the number is 1. Okay, B is equal to negative 3. Be careful with your signs. C is equal to negative 28. Okay, watch those signs. So if I were doing this as a student, and pull this up a little bit, I would say, okay, we have x is equal to, and I would rewrite the formula. I find that whenever I rewrite formulas, it helps me memorize them. And this is a formula that you want to commit to your memory bank. If you remember the story of the negative boy, couldn't decide whether he'd go to the radical party because he was square. If he didn't go, he'd miss out on 4 awesome chicks and the party was over at 2 a.m. Okay, if you remember that, you can remember all of this. So we're going to go ahead and do this. So this is negative b. So whatever b is, you take the negative form of it. And I'm going to show you every bit of me plugging it in. But if you're quick and you're saying, okay, well, a negative b would be a negative of a negative 3, you could go ahead and just write 3. I'm not saying that you have to show every bit of work on this, but if you forget, a lot of people forget and they just put negative 3 here, and then they've messed up completely from the beginning, and then they won't ever get the right answer. Okay, so b squared, again, I'm going to show you all my work on this one, and on another one, I'll show you kind of a shortened hand thing. Now be careful, this is b squared, not a negative 3 squared, not like this. Let me come over here. Not like this. Okay, remember if we have this, this would be a negative 9. But if we have this, this is actually negative 3 times the negative 3, which would be a positive 9. So be careful. So then negative 4 times 1, which is our A, and times negative 28, which is our C, all over 2 times 1. Now remember, I'm showing you every bit of work. Okay, so then let me go through and we'll just keep solving. So this would become a positive 3 plus or minus. This is 9. Now you see how you have a negative and a negative. The negative and the negative become a positive, and I'm going to go ahead and plug in. Give me a moment. I've got my calculator. I'm going to do a negative 4 times a negative 28. And I will get 112 right there. Okay, all over 2. Okay, now let's figure out what this is right here. So 112 plus your 9 gives you 121. Okay, so that's what's underneath the radical. Now, what is the square root of 121? It's 11. So let's do this. 3 plus or minus 11 all over 2. Now, do you see this? This is equal to x. Please, please, please do not leave it in this form, because this tells me it's kind of like putting your dishes in the sink for your mom and not cleaning them up for her. So you're saving her the work. Now, yeah, you brought them over from the table, but you put them in the sink. Okay? Don't save your work for me. I've already done this work. You do it. So let's do both options. 3 plus 11, which would be 14, over 2, which is 7. Okay? So x is 7 over 3 minus 11, which would be a negative 8 over 2, which is equal to a negative 4. So those are your two options. Now, just to check for extraneous solutions, you would plug those back in to your original equation and see if that they would work. If one of them doesn't work, don't include it in the answer. On this particular one, I'm just going to tell you right now, they both work. Okay, so, but if you were checking, you would do 7 squared, 49, minus 3 times 7, which is 21, and then minus 28, and it would end up being 0. Same thing with the negative 4. When you square it, it would become a 16, and then minus the 3 times the negative 4, which would become a positive 12. So you would have 16 plus 12. Well, minus 28, that gives you 0. Okay, so that in the end is your answer. Okay, now let's try another problem. I'm going to give you one that doesn't work out so pretty. Let's do 17. Okay, 17 is really not very pretty. Okay, so we have 2x squared plus 5 plus 9x equals 0. One, this actually kind of catches your attention, and hopefully it says to you, oh my goodness, this is not in order. Okay, you don't have to put it in order, but you do need to remember that this is A, this is B, and this is C. Okay, remember the C is the constant, it's the lonely number. Okay, so you can rearrange it to be the right order, because remember, addition is a commutative property, and we can flip things around and it's the same thing. Okay, but you see now we have A, B, and C. Okay, so let's put it into our formula. Again, I write my formula out. So he's a square and he misses out on 4 awesome chicks. The party is over at 2 a.m. Okay, so let's do this problem. Negative 9 plus or minus the square root, and I told you this time I'm not going to show every detail of work, b squared, which would be 81, minus 4, and I do end up showing this almost on every problem just so that I can see it. So minus 4 times A times C all over 2 times A, which is 2 times 2, and I'm going to just put 4. Okay, so I've eliminated some of my work, but not all. Now, what is 4 times 2? That's 8. 8 times 5, that's 40. So we have 81 minus 40. Sorry, let's do it proper like that. And so underneath your radical is 41, right? Well, is 41 a perfect square? No. So your answer is pretty ugly. And you can keep it just like this. Okay, that is your answer, and that's how you keep it. if you were able, let's say this was an 8 and there might have been a 4 there, and you could divide both of these by 4, you could do that. Now keep in mind, let's say this was a 16. Okay, don't do 16. Let's say 20. Okay. Um, you can't think to yourself, oh, 4 goes into 20 and then divide into that, because that is under the radical. It needs to be outside the radical to be divided by this one itself. Okay, I believe that's where I'm going to end. I have you doing 1 through 18 blue, and I only gave you one assignment, so hopefully that helps. You can do 1 through 12 on your own, and now you only have 2 problems where you're plugging into the quadratic formula. And see on this, well, wouldn't that be lovely if you had to factor that? Oh my goodness, that would not have been pretty at all. But that, I didn't really have this. That is my x. If you were wondering what number that is, well, you could put it into your calculator and go -9 plus or minus the square root of, this will be a decimal, and all divided by 4. You're going to have, not 4, sorry, all divided by 4, but you're going to have 2 answers because of the plus or minus. Now, one note, when we get to Algebra 2 in a couple of years, when you have something like this, okay, the plus or minus, if it had 0, how many answers will you have for your x? You're right, just 1, because there won't be a plus or minus part. Okay, something else to it for the future, and you're not dealing with this right now, but let's say, what if you had something like this? Whoa, that's an imaginary number, and so this would include 2 unreal roots, which is something that we won't deal with until Algebra 2, but this is an interesting part, but you would have to identify it as 2 unreal roots. All right, so those are just things that we're going to deal with later on, those of you who are curious, but that is all that we have for this week. I hope you enjoy your last week of school, and I will see y'all on Friday. Remember, on Friday, you are turning in your algebra book and this assignment. You can email the assignment if you'd rather do that, but don't forget, you have to turn in your algebra book. And let me think if there's anything else. Oh, you might want to check RenWeb for any missing work. If I had any missing work, I have emailed parents or you or texted you, but if you haven't gotten it in, I need you to do that. So yeah, I just noticed, oh my goodness, that's funny. Oh, sorry, I was reading my lesson plan. This is totally like rabbit trail. I was reading my lesson plan and I thought it said memory verse of the class, and I was like, oh no, I must have used my Bible template, but I didn't. It says favorite memory of the class. Some of you haven't been doing the bonuses. Actually, most of you haven't been doing the bonuses. I've only had a handful of people who have tried them, but this is really going to help grades when you try to do the bonus. So going forward, if you ever have an opportunity to do a bonus, always do it. Even if you're making 100, you might not be making 100 in the end, and it will help you. All right, that's all I have for you. Love you guys, and I will see you on Friday. Bye-bye.